Oh, it's so great to have you with us once again here on Leading Edge. I'm your host, Jeff Smith. I wanted to start out the show laying out some facts for you. U.S. Representative Marcy Kaptur has been a member of the U.S. House for 42 years. The Democrat came into office in January of 1983 and has announced that she is running to retain her seat next November in the midterm election. Now, according to GovTrack, in that time, she has been the primary sponsor of 11 bills that were signed into law, including the World War II Memorial Act, which was signed into law by President Clinton in 1993. Now, on the other side of her are these announced GOP competitors: Wayne Kinzel, Derek Merrin, Aaliyah Nadeem, and our guest today, current Ohio House District 44 Representative Josh Williams. Josh, thanks for being back on Leading Edge. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Let's start right there with the fact that this is a crowded field going for this District 9 seat. Talk about that, the pressure, and I also want to understand from you fundraising and trying to compete in a field that's got so many other competitors in it already.
Yeah, so we look forward to the primary process. That's what our party is built on, giving the voters an opportunity to choose the best candidate. We believe we're the best candidate. We're getting tremendous support on the ground. I mean, when we announced, we started out with the majority of members of the Ohio House of Representatives endorsing us. Our state treasurer, Robert Sprague, endorsed our race, and we've been picking up endorsements from county officials across the district. And when it comes to fundraising, we continue to meet our metrics. I mean, we just had a wonderful fundraiser at the Toledo Country Club just this week where we hit our mark, and we're going to be able to raise the type of money that we need to be successful in this primary season.
Let me ask you why. What is the why of the voter? What is the why of the donor? Why do they see you as their candidate?
Well, what
are you hearing?
They want to beat Marcy Kaptur. I mean, Marcy Kaptur has been in office longer than I've been alive. She's not in touch with the district. She's not voting according to what the voters want in the district, and they're ready for change. And they've seen the leadership that I've been able to exhibit here in the state of Ohio, going from being the first black Republican elected in 50 years to rising to leadership in just 2 years in the Ohio House and sponsoring tremendous amounts of legislation that really can change lives here in Ohio. The voters believe that I can be the best one to lead the 9th District moving forward.
What made you a conservative?
I've always been a conservative. I was raised in a Christian household. My father was a reverend. I've always been a social and fiscal conservative. As I got into college and was able to get around more like-minded people and made my way to law school, I mean, that's where we started. I started to learn the principles of judicial decision and the government and co-equal branches, and understanding that the struggles that I went through going from a homeless high school dropout to being disabled for a long period of time, and having that individual determination to overcome and get government out of the way of my progress, those are Republican conservative principles of individual responsibility. And I take those principles and put it into meaningful legislation so everyone in the 9th District has a chance to chase the American dream like I did.
Do you know Kinzel as a competitor? Do you know Nadeem? I know you know about Derek Merrin. I mean, what are the things that set you apart from each of them, and why are you that upper echelon, that upper tier candidate for voters?
Yeah, so I know Derek Merrin. We served together in the Ohio House. Aaliyah Nadeem and Wayne Kinzel, I don't know. They're not from the district. They moved here recently because they want to become a congressman. And I understand those pursuits, but that's not what the district wants. Our grassroots
Although
efforts...
I do want to point out, Kinzel is a businessman in Sylvania Township.
Yes, he owns a business in Sylvania Township, but he just moved here 4 years ago. Right. He hasn't been active in the Republican Party at all. Same with Aaliyah Nadeem. And we've just concentrated on our race. I don't like to disparage any other candidate and talk about them. I prefer to concentrate on my character traits, my abilities, my ability to lead the 9th District moving forward. And voters and supporters have been able to garner support behind me because they believe I'm the leader that the 9th District needs. Before
we get to some local issues that I want to talk to you as a representative of an Ohio district, I want to talk to you about redistricting, which has come up again and again. Specifically, the advantage that those out there say it will give the GOP party because of the inclusion and, I guess, the letting go of more Democratic strongholds. So do you see it as an advantage going forward?
I see it as a necessary redrawing. I mean, the voters made it perfectly clear that if we were not able to reach bipartisan maps after the 2020 census, it would have to get redrawn after that election cycle. So we're required to redraw this district. We're prepared to win the district as it is drawn now. We see the vote totals that we've had in the last 2 election cycles. We see our margin of victory over Marcy Kaptur and what the voters selected. I mean, in the small area that we went head-to-head with Marcy Kaptur in the last election cycle, in Toledo, in Wood County, in Lucas County, in Ottawa County, we beat Marcy Kaptur by 6,600 votes. Over 70% of the precincts voted for me in that election cycle. We know we have the type of momentum that is needed. And just the margin that she won by, I say this jokingly, but it's so true, the margin that she won by in the last election cycle, my wife and I have more family members in Toledo and Lucas County that are supporting me than that margin.
And that person who almost beat her was Derek Merrin. So how does that factor in for you as a candidate?
Well, I think it's important to note that not only the voters and the donors are supporting me, but when I announced my candidacy on June 23rd, the majority of the elected officials in Columbus in the House of Representatives that served with Derek Merrin and I at the same time endorsed me in this race over Derek Merrin. They saw the leadership that I exhibited when I got to Columbus, not only on my own legislation, but working on their bills, their issues, and with their interested parties to get legislation across the finish line. And it was interesting, you said that Marcy Kaptur, was the primary sponsor on 11 pieces of legislation in her entire 42-year career. I've been in politics for 3 years, and I have more bills signed and into law than that.
Let's talk a little bit about things that are more topical here today. And I want to first get your thoughts as an advocate, as a supporter of the Second Amendment, and seeing what happened and played out in Minneapolis this past week. Your thoughts on what is needed at this point as far as these school shootings is concerned.
Yeah, that's a true tragedy. We don't want to ever see any student harmed while they're, especially in a sanctuary, while they're praying, while they're at school, while their parents believe that they're safe and secure getting their education. But we have a mental health crisis here in America, and especially here in the state of Ohio. We shut down a lot of our mental institutions previously that were sponsored by the state. We rely now on a lot of third parties to have mental health beds. I've worked with judges and other community leaders on trying to get better process to get individuals off the street that are struggling with mental illness. We've been successful in getting state funding here for places like Danny's Place that we were just able to get across the finish line after a long period of time of trying to get funding. We were adamant that we wanted it, even though it wasn't in my district. I fought for it, and now we just went to the ribbon cutting ceremony. I've also gone to Sunshine Communities to talk about not only developmental disabilities, but mental health beds. I've gone to every single provider, Zeph Center, all of them, Team Recovery, to talk about mental health because it's an important topic that I'm passionate about.
But what we see when each of these play out, you're saying this is a mental health debate, this is not a gun debate.
I mean, we saw from the video that was released by the shooter that they were going through a mental health crisis. We saw the manifesto. We saw the writings on magazines and things of that nature. That clearly is a mental health issue that wasn't identified by the family and friends of that individual. And we wish they would have been able to get help before they decided to engage in that horrible tragedy where lives were lost.
I want to take about 2 more minutes with you here. Our time is short. I apologize, but we're moving quickly through a number of things. I want to turn the focus back here to Toledo, something that you were privy to, Toledo-Lucas County Library System, saying that it was going to close the Toledo Heights Library. Funding a problem. You said it may be a matter of allocation versus shortages.
Yeah, we've met with the library before during the budget process and even afterwards. This is a budget constraint allocation of what priorities they have. At the same time that they're shutting down these branches, they're also building brand new libraries on Alexis and in other locations that are more modern. This is a choice of where they want their funds. There wasn't a state funding cut to our public libraries. We made a dedicated line item in the budget to make sure they have stable funding sources, when if you look in the past, funding for libraries, because it was a percentage, would go up and go down. They would go over budget and be under budget and have to come to the state for additional funding to make up for a deficit. So we stabilize the funding source for our public libraries, who we support.
But Jason says, the director of the Toledo-Lucas County Public Library says it's a function of those dollars not keeping up with inflation and also of the legislature reducing library funding across the state.
Yeah, there wasn't a reduction in the budget. What he's speaking of is there was projections of what it could grow. And since we flatlined it in the budget cycle, he wasn't able to capture those dollars they were hoping to get, which will be additional dollars. But if you look at the budget line item from previously to now, they've been flatlined and been consistent in the budget cycle.
Josh, we appreciate the time as always. Kind of sidestepping some personal things that were going on tonight to be here, so we so appreciate that.
Yeah, I tell my wife happy anniversary.
I wasn't going to get into it. Josh, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you down the road.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Stay right there. When we come back, we're going to talk with the superintendent of Sylvania Schools. A new school year, lots of changes to talk about, and of course, tackling AI for not only the young kids, but also the high schoolers about to be adults. Welcome back here on Leading Edge. Before we get to my next guest, I've got to share something with you. I had the privilege earlier this summer of speaking to the Sylvania Chamber of Commerce. I shared a presentation about communication that goes beyond the newsroom. But let me get to the point. I was sitting at the table with somebody who is relatively new to Northwest Ohio, but she was so engaging and personable and honest that I told her, I said, once her schedule allows for it, I would love to have her as a guest on Leading Edge and give you the chance to hear from her as well. So we want to welcome to Leading Edge Dr. Veronica Motley, who is, of course, the superintendent of Sylvania Schools. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Finally, after the calendar kind of freed up. And
absolutely.
I was so taken with our conversation because we discussed just generalities as far as education is concerned, how important it is to you coming from Northeast Ohio, and then coming here to Sylvania. What were the dynamics? Is school, or were there different dynamics to Northwest Ohio education?
Well, it's a good question that you ask, because to a certain degree, being a school leader, being in a school district, there are certain variables that stay the same.
Sure.
However, when I came to Sylvania, there were definitely variables that were different, such as COVID. Mm-hmm. I started under COVID for the first year and a half. Many of my meetings with not only educators, but parents were on a computer screen, quite frankly. So it was hard to foster relationships or cultivate.
Right?
Absolutely. But the thing that makes it, regardless if you're in Northeast Ohio or Northwest Ohio, being in education is about helping children thrive, giving back to the community, having impact, and having a process and a pathway for children to go on across the stage at 18 and go on and have successful lives.
So as you come into those, I guess, road bumps, let's say that, along the way. And I lead directly into transportation, and that was one of the things that you had to kind of juggle there right out of the gate, is figuring out that system, how it was going to work best, not only for your students, parochial students, getting them to school. Where are we with that?
Well, you know, we did go through litigation, and unfortunately, it went all the way to the Ohio Supreme Court. But I will say the Ohio Supreme Court dismissed the case. And at this point, that I would like to hope that that argument, if you will, has simmered down quite a bit. We still provide transportation for our students who attend private schools. We use a model where we have certain points. We swoop up all the kids on the bus stop in the morning. Mm-hmm. We have a depot, like a depot stop at our high schools. They take some transfer buses, and then those children are delivered to their private schools. Yeah. So it's been a system that's been in place for a very, very long time, decades, if you will. Yeah. So at this point, that matter has been resolved, and we continue to communicate with all of our Sylvania parents in regards to transportation. I think that was another thing that came out of this litigation process, though. How can we improve communication, not only in regards to transportation with our own Sylvania school students, but students that reside in our district that don't attend our school, because quite frankly, they're still Sylvania kids. Absolutely,
and you talk about coming up with plans going into the new year. Another one that came out this year was the cell phone policy going forward, and that's part of the state's mandate, but it's also, are there little tweaks as far as Sylvania is concerned as well? I noticed something this week talking about Wi-Fi in the building and how that was going to be managed.
Yes, so there are some tweaks. First of all, recall, when Ohio legislature and the governor rolled out the expectations for cell phones no longer being used during the instructional day, they did give the schools districts a window of time. The policy, you have until January 1st of 2026 to really get it up and running. Yeah. We decided in our district we wanted to start off the school year out the gate with here's our policy.
Right.
There's nothing worse sometimes for a child to have an opportunity and then you take it out of their hands.
Right.
It's much more difficult to change. However, we chose to have our students have their cell phones silenced and placed in their lockers, and that's for students in grades 6 through 12. We went a step further because, technology and students, they're a lot faster. They do, they're so clever. They are so clever. But what we found out is that in some regards, especially some operating systems, they were able to still text and communicate. So what we were able to do through our system is disable the Wi-Fi connection with textability. So it decreases, again, that opportunity for kids to be distracted during the school day.
Right. And was it a distraction? I mean, regardless of the state coming in and saying, we want you to do this, were teachers noticing? Were other administrators like yourself noticing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a distraction.
Absolutely. I think if you would talk to any educator, any superintendent, any administrator, cell phones played a significant part in the child's typical school day. If it was in the classroom, if it was in the hallway, if it was during lunch or in study hall. Some kids did things appropriately. I would really go to say the majority of our students use phones appropriately, but it's also for that 15% or 10% that make it difficult on everyone. Yeah. We saw an increase in earpods, canceling noise earpods. So if you're calling a kid down the hall, or to get out of the way, or something is happening for a safety reason, they wouldn't hear you.
Another distraction.
Because they're listening to music and they can't hear.
I want to talk about something else that's come up, and it's AI. When we come back, stick around. We'll be right back with Dr. Veronica Motley from Sylvania Schools right after this. Welcome back once again. Sylvania Superintendent Veronica Motley joining us. Doctor, I'm curious, and I've got to go back to something that happened this past week. Another school shooting, tragically. We deal with these more than I never want to use or hear the word manifesto again, because every time we hear about this. Talk from a school administrator's standpoint, how it impacts you. Not happening at your school district, but still a part of you, a part of your teachers, the concern, the worry, the parents.
I will tell you, as a school leader, as an educator, it reverberates across your school district, regardless if it's in your district, a neighboring district, or out of state. Anytime this type of tragedy happens, we all feel it. And it diminishes us all. And it's hurtful. And to see that these children were hopeful, it was the first week of school. They were supposed to be having fun. They were in a place of prayer.
Right.
And to have something happen so tragically to such innocent individuals, it's something that makes you press pause. There are times you hold back tears, and then you have to regroup and pretty much say, what are we going to do for our students and our community and our educators to make sure that we are prepared if something like this were to happen? I
would imagine, and I don't want to speak for you, but I would imagine you're also running through dollars and cents thinking, can we add this? Is it in the budget to, the scenario that played out, it was not even in the school grounds, and you guys are so worried so many times about keeping people out. This didn't happen inside.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate your comments on that. I do want to talk to you about AI because obviously it's come up a lot in the last couple of years. How do you tackle this from an age standpoint? And of course, for our viewers, we're talking about artificial intelligence in the classroom. The use of it, are your teachers embracing it? Are your students allowed to embrace it? And how do you differentiate from a grade school, middle school, and high school level?
Absolutely. Well, first, let me tell you, AI is here to stay.
Sure.
And it is growing exponentially in regards to its capabilities. And oftentimes in the field of education, we find ourselves playing catch up once we find out what it can and cannot do. In regards to grade levels, when we look at the elementary grades, we don't see a lot of AI per se where our students are using AI, but we do have curriculum now and assessments that we use to work with our children that are really based on AI. If a child is reading a particular passage or taking an assessment, we want to see where his grade level of performance would be. We are able to have them engage with some software that will tell us where his needs or her needs are, with how she reads and how she performs. Now, at the junior high, they're clever, those middle schoolers. I'm a former middle school teacher, and I will tell you, they're quite clever. Sometimes at the middle school age, we learn what not to do with AI. But then we also have to have expectations, not only for children, but for our educators. And quite frankly, there's a third prong. Our parents and our families. We need to often educate them as well. And then at the high school level, we're preparing that grade level to go on for the next phase of their life. Right. AI will be a part of their profession if they are in the military, if they're in career or college. How to use it responsibly, how to use it with transparency, how to use it with accountability, so that you're not caught using it to write a paper and cheat, right? We don't want that. But also we know that there are tools that the AI software or technology has that will expedite our work and how we can complete work more thoroughly with research. But you always have to realize that we need to teach our students, you have to check and verify. Right. You can't totally rely upon it.
It's a fascinating topic. I want to ask you in our last minute, facilities. You guys looked at a master facility plan. Right. Are you guys landlocked? I mean, Sylvania's, it's an older district, Timberstone being one of the newer schools out there, but is there growth potential? You got about 45 seconds.
You know, we went through a thorough master facilities plan, and to your question, we are landlocked, but we are looking at a number of ways that we can use the facilities we have now, currently in our district. We have 12 schools, and we are continuing to monitor our enrollment to see where the growth is. We know right now it's on the southwest end of town. There's a lot of room for development, but we do have scenarios that will accommodate growth when necessary.
All right, so stay tuned.
That's
we would say
correct.
In the business,
That's
right?
correct.
Doctor,
That's right.
It's so great to have you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
And I know the viewers benefited from hearing you and seeing your smiling face.
Oh, I appreciate that.
We'll be back, wrap things up for this week on Leading Edge right after this. Welcome back for a final time this week. By the way, I want to point you in the direction of our email. Check it out. If you have comments, ideas for the show, you just want to talk to us here at Leading Edge, send it to Leading Edge, all one word, at WTOL.com. My name is Jeff Smith. So glad to have you with us each and every week. Going forward, listen, learn, and lead. We'll see you next time.